healing half. My name is Miki Speer. I am so excited that you are here. Tonight, we are going to be talking about an amazing topic that is relevant to so many people, as cancer is one of the highest things that people get diagnosed with in this entire country. So tonight with me, I've got my sister Anne in the background. It's great to have her here visiting. She's heading off to college, so we're just having an absolute blast here in New Mexico. But for wherever you are at, please give me a hello in the comments section. I want to know where you're from and what the weather's like there, because in New Mexico today it was sunny and in the 40s, so I'll take it. But I wonder where it was for you. But for those of you who are here, welcome. My name is Miki Speer. When I was 13 years old, my mom passed away from cancer. And I spent the better part of a decade pretending I was fine, avoiding feeling at all costs. And I wanted to make sure, now that I'm after that awareness and I know how important from my own personal journey it is to feel and to go through our emotions, that we learn about how to do that and interview people with perspectives different than ours so we can learn how to be better community members. And man, is tonight's show going to do just that. I'll let my guest introduce himself, but without further ado, please welcome the wonderful Matt Gronke. And I really apologize, Matt, if I mispronounced your last name there.
Thanks, Miki. You did fine. Been called a lot worse.
Oh.
So as Miki said, my name is Matt Gronke. I know Miki through some work that I do through one of a nonprofit locally, the Midwest Country Music Organization. We're both artists here in the Twin Cities area. I've been in that field for over half of my life at this point, I guess, and try to stay busy when the bars are open and the restaurants and they let us do that sort of thing. I was a firefighter for 10 years and as a volunteer in my local community, and spend my professional time in sales, management, marketing, that kind of stuff. So, Miki, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, Matt. And I, for those of you guys who don't know, he's a phenomenal musician. He's got an amazing band, and I did put his band in the comment section. So make sure you go follow his band, show him some love. All us musicians could use a little boost right now, and he's about to put out some amazing music. So you're going to want to be on that list. And Matt, as much as I would love to talk about music tonight, because that's a well of information you are so wise with, that's not why we have you on the show. You have a perspective on being diagnosed with cancer that I cannot wait to crack open. So do you mind just kind of leading us up to when you were diagnosed?
Not at all. So I was at a point in my life where I was, I'd say, the heaviest I've ever been, very out of shape and just kind of falling apart. And I had made a conscious decision that I needed to get healthy. So I made some changes to my diet and my lifestyle, and managed to drop about 30 pounds, and was feeling amazing. Everything was going really well, but I was traveling a lot for work and started coughing. And I thought, well, I'm just coming down with something. The coughing started, I remember exactly where I was. I was at a sports bar in Kansas City, watching the Vikings get their butts kicked by the Saints on Monday Night Football. And I started coughing at dinner time, and it proceeded to get worse and worse and worse. And eventually I started noticing that I was short of breath and things like that. And my wife convinced me to go to the doctor to get checked out, because she thought I could get some good cough syrup that would help me sleep, which in turn would let her sleep. And so I went in, and they immediately did an x-ray thinking that I may have had some sort of pneumonia. And that's when they discovered a mass in my chest, right about here. That was, I want to say at the time, it was about 15 centimeters tall and about 5 centimeters around. So pretty good size. And they immediately sent me home and said that they were going to set up an appointment for me the next morning to get a CT biopsy done. So once she showed me the x-ray, I knew something was up. and started, coming up with a plan on what I was going to do, even though I didn't know what was wrong. And called my wife, and then called my mother, and we talked about it for a little bit, and preempted. I started fasting that night because I knew that I would have to fast to get any kind of procedure done for 24 hours prior to. So the next morning, when the doctor's office called me, I was able to get in that morning for the CT biopsy. At that time, they told me that while I was getting the CT biopsy, the nurse and the doctor that was doing it, they were pretty confident that it was cancer, and they were telling me that, well, we've seen this before. This is pretty much what it is. We'll get the for sure results here in a little bit, but this is probably what's going to happen, and we'll take care of you. And I started. It didn't really register. I mean, I knew something was wrong, but I wasn't thinking about it. I was just trying to process what happens. What's my plan? And so the next couple days were pretty strange. I didn't really talk to anybody about it except for my wife and some close friends, and my family. Then we got a call stating that everything came back negative. So we were ecstatic, and that was about a week later. And it didn't seem we didn't really know. We were ecstatic that it was negative, but
Yeah.
that's still the question remained is, well, what the hell's in my chest, and what are we gonna do about that? So they set up a deal for me to visit with a thoracic surgeon, and the general consensus was that we just had some kind of big fatty mass in my chest that they were gonna have to take out, and the procedure for taking it out was going to be terrible. Sternotomy. I forgot what they call it. Split your rib cage open.
Yep.
The doctor that was scheduled to perform that, the expert in that area, happened to work for Minnesota Oncology. And my doctor told me when I go to my consult, don't worry, we already know it's not cancer, but you have to go to this office where they do all the cancer stuff because that's where your doctor is. Well, while I was getting my consult done for this surgery that was going to take place in a couple days, he just did a lot of hemming and hawing looking at the picture, and I finally said, you got to tell me something. You can't just sit there and make noises. And he says, I'm going to leave your surgery scheduled. I'm also going to order a few more tests before you go home today, and I will call you in a couple days. And that's pretty much what he said. And he said, I think we're dealing with a unique type of cancer here. I don't know why the other one was negative. He says, but I need to know for sure. So we went about our business, and we were sitting at the Mexican restaurant for Taco Tuesday, and got the call from the doctor, and he says, yeah, I did confirm it. Your AFP and your BHCG numbers are through the roof. I forget what the actual numbers were. Your normal range is usually 9, somewhere between 3 and 9, and I was at 65,000. So this thing was really hauling ass that was in my body.
Whoa.
And he says, so we need to do an actual biopsy, not a needle biopsy. We need to go in and see exactly what we're dealing with. And this is what I think it is. This is what it's called. It was called a germ cell tumor. And the full name for it, I believe, was mediastinal, which means front of my chest, non-seminomus yolk sac germ cell tumor. And so I started looking online about all that. And unfortunately, rare cancers don't typically have the most recent information at your disposal when you're trying to diagnose yourself and figure out if you're going to die or not. So we had a lot of learning to do in a short amount of time, and not very good information to go on. But I did find a doctor that was supposed to be the expert in this stuff. Move forward a couple days. They do this biopsy. I'm scheduled to start chemo. My oncology doctor, Dr. Thermos, out of Minnesota Oncology, when I brought up the specialist that I mentioned, he had already consulted with him prior to my meeting. So I'm like, okay, he knows his stuff too. He's already way ahead of me. So that's when we just kind of went, all right, this is the plan. We are going to do what they say because they know more than we do, and we just need to make sure that that we're putting ourselves in the best position. And by me, I mean me with my attitude, my wife with her attitude, you know. So that kind of led up to the diagnosis point, and it all happened really, really fast. Once the wheels started turning, I mean, it was just within days. I was checking in for my first round of chemotherapy.
Mm. Wow. Well, first of all, I'm so sorry that that happened. Like you said, you were getting healthy. You were thinking you're moving in the right direction. Where did this come from? It's so confusing. So, kind of thinking to that, I mean, you're a young, good looking dude. How did it feel to get that news when you had really no reason to think you would be getting that news?
Um, well, I have a history of having strange things happen when they're not supposed to. So it didn't really come as too much of, I mean, it was a surprise. It was a
Yeah.
life-changing event. But growing up, one of the things that we've always been taught in our family, and with the people that were involved in me becoming a man, was you need to take care of what you can take care of, and the rest of it, there's nothing you can do about the rest of it. So one of my good friends that was also going through cancer at the time, was a pretty inspirational and a pretty big part of my mantra throughout the thing. Is just He's just like, fix your attitude. That is going to be huge. You have to be in a good mood, and you have to go into this with a good attitude. And that dude, Joe, is so positive that it's like, and he was on his third battle with leukemia when he was telling me this. And I'm like,
Oof.
well, if he can do it 3 times, I can do it once, you know. And even if I can't, I'm certainly not going to just throw in the towel and be crabby as hell.
Yeah.
So I just made a decision, a conscious decision, that um, I'm going to be in a good mood. I have a good attitude. I've got the best people in the business working on
Yeah.
this for me, and I'm in the best care at Abbott on their seventh floor cancer ward downtown there. And I've got friends and family that are stepping up to take care of things at home so that I can focus on getting healthy. And that
Yeah.
was my job. That so all day, every day, the only thing I was responsible for was being a good patient
Yeah.
and letting
Wow.
everybody else do their job. So that
I
made it
love.
easier
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
you have to come you got to compartmentalize what you're responsible for, because if you don't, you're not going to make it. You have to, like, focus on and prioritize what is my problem now and what is not my
Mm.
problem now. So
Yeah,
so
I
that's kind
cannot.
of the way that we went into it.
Yeah, that's so powerful. Thank you so much for sharing. You keep saying "we," and I love that because it's a family and friends affair, right? It takes an army. So,
Hmm.
speaking of that army, what were things in that moment, those weeks, those early months, that really helped you and perhaps your immediate family? Um, and again, I'm just trying to just crack this nut because I have my own experience with cancer. I mean, my mom had it, of course, and I was a kid, so I know it kind of from a kid perspective, and I know like meals helped us and that stuff. But I'm so
Hmm.
curious from someone who was actually diagnosed, like what helped you stay positive, not give in to I'm sure the immense fear I can only imagine, as well as keep your family okay too.
Yeah. um I guess what really helped was obviously the support, the outpouring of support. People were coming out of the woodwork, um just to give me their best wishes, and just check in with me, and that was nice.
Yeah,
What One thing that happens a lot is everybody says they want to help, but nobody knows what to do.
yeah,
And we had some people in our group really step up and organize that. And that's one of the biggest things, is that people want to help, but if you don't give them a job, they're not going to know what to do. So they're not going to help. It'll just continue to be thoughts and prayers. But if you need somebody to, take your dog to the vet, or bring you sanitizer and masks, or boost protein drinks so that can get some nutrition and stuff. If you don't tell people what you need, they're not going to know. So
Mm.
as the person going through it, you have to kind of, is it humility? Is that the word I'm looking for? You kind of
Yeah,
got to bring
humble
yourself
yourself.
down a few notches, and resign to the fact that you're going to need help. And then either you figure it out and organize it yourself, and you say, this is what I need, or somebody close to you needs to step up because they know what you need, and then help
Yeah.
organize it and delegate it. Like meal trains is awesome for people that are going through this, because and not so much for the person that's going through it, because you're not hungry, everything tastes like crap, and you don't want to eat anyway, but the people in your house still have to eat. So
Right.
you got to make sure that they're getting food too. But
Yeah.
because it's like there's so many moving parts to all of this. So I guess that's just the one thing, like, is what can I do if I find out somebody has somebody close going through this, how can I help them? Find out who is organizing their help. And if
Mm.
nobody is, then be that person that's organizing their help, or get somebody
Mm.
who is organized to help with it, because otherwise things just pile up, and it's all the way down to, just picking up the house and keeping things clean, because there's driving back and forth, and just the exhaustion of dealing with it all. Things are going to get fallen behind.
Yeah.
We were over the winter, so we didn't have to worry about mowing the lawn and taking care of that, because that's always my deal. But that was not an issue. And out of the woodwork, we had people showing up to plow our driveway and shovel every time it snowed. So, and I don't even remember who all those people were. I know who a few of them were, but there was trucks of businesses that I'd never even heard of doing that kind of stuff. So just people came out of the woodwork, and
Wow.
it was a really nice, um, very grateful for all the help. So that's one of the reasons I like to talk about it, is because, I may not have an opportunity to help everybody that needs it, that helped me, but maybe, I can let somebody else know how to help somebody, or, just keep the circle going, I guess.
The awareness, and I love that. Thank you so much for that amazing perspective, because you're right, it's so hard to ask for help, and so I think for us community members, if you know some I loved your point about, if you don't know who's organizing it, figure it out and do it, because that's
Mhm.
so, so, so important. Don't put that pressure on the family going through it to, like, organize all their stuff. I think that's so amazing, and I'm kind of curious for people watching, like, what are your guys' thoughts on that? I can't wait to go through and, like, read the comments afterwards a little bit more in depth, because wow, I think this is so just powerful. So thank you, Matt, for getting that's just a really great perspective, is step up to the plate and organize it. Like, it takes an army, and I think that's really cool.
You
So
you kind of hit it with the step up thing. I mean, everybody has to step up. I had to step
yeah,
up to make sure my attitude was good, and I was able to focus on getting healthy. And
yeah.
my wife had to step up to make sure that everything around the house, that she was able to take care of. And all of a sudden she's taking care of, making sure the bills are paid and all that stuff, and just keeping all of our ducks in a row. My folks were making sure that I was getting to my appointments in time. Lucky for me, my parents are retired, so they were able to spend time with me. My treatment was a little different than most. I was inpatient instead of outpatient, so I would go in for 7 days and receive chemo 24 hours a day for 7 days, and then have one day of just getting pumped full of fluids to try and flush it all out, and then I could go home. And then I would have 3 weeks to 3.5 weeks to get my numbers and stuff back up again, so I could go do it again. So we did 4 cycles of that. And after the fourth cycle, the goal was that the numbers were going to be in the normal range, back in those single digits, which meant that the tumor was dying or dead. And then after that, then the resection surgery, which was going to be a challenge within itself because of the location of the tumor and everything. There's lots of complications that could happen. So throughout that whole winter, all these things are going on. I was cumulatively getting sicker and sicker, not from the cancer, but because of the treatment. And I had gotten down to 165 pounds, I think, no hair, handsome fellow. And yeah, everybody that saw me would usually just started crying or something because I probably looked like I was going to die. But we had went through the last one, and we were able to get the surgery scheduled, and they successfully did what they needed to do, and everything worked the way it was supposed to. Every little tiny setback that we had, and there was a bunch of them, but we were all able to mitigate them just by
Yeah.
following the plan. We didn't have like any big surprises, which is amazing because even though they've got an effective treatment plan for this, the conditions have to be right for it to work, and we were very blessed that everything happened the way it was supposed to, so that they could get these two surgeons in there, and they could do exactly what they needed to do, and they successfully removed the full tumor, cleaned up
Mm.
a margin all the way around it, cleaned up the mess I had going on the front of my chest from the previous surgery. Um, and everything just worked the way it was supposed to. So then from then on out, it was just okay, get stronger and heal, and that now I can honestly say that I feel like I'm healed, but we're still in the getting stronger phase. I mean, we'll be coming up on, I think I have like a 22-month appointment coming up at the end of the month here. The 2-year mark will be in early April or end of March. I forget what we named what date we actually picked.
Sure.
So it's still a constant challenge because I'm not strong like I used to be, physically strong like I used to be. I think I'm more spiritually and mentally strong now than I've ever been in my life.
Yeah.
But the physical part will come. It's going to take time. I'm
Wow.
back up to my pre-cancer weight, and I'm certainly not as focused on the getting stronger part lately. I still am kind of focused on enjoying bourbon and steak and not going to the gym and things
You
like
gotta
that.
live.
But I think I've earned that.
You have to, Matt. I think you have to. And I love what you said about the perspective again of it takes time to heal. And that's good for us to know. And I know we've
Mhm.
talked about this a lot on the show with grieving and stuff. You can see somebody doing well and just kind of say, oh, they're doing great. Awesome. And then our brains kind of immediately go somewhere else. But it's
Yeah,
important to remember for cancer patients, like this is not just going away anytime soon. It takes a long time to recover. So
it's
thank you
it's
so
never
much.
it's never over. It's
Yeah.
always in the back of your head. Every time I have a pain or an ache, I mean, that's the first thing I think of. You know,
Mm.
Now, oddly enough, since knock on wood, since everything, I haven't had a cold in like 2 years, and I used to get sick every winter. So I'm waiting for that first cough because that's what started it all was the cough,
Um,
and I'm going, no, we're not having a cough ever again. That's not going to happen.
I'm sure there's some post-traumatic stress, of course, with coughing. I can
It's
only
just, yeah,
imagine.
I don't know. It's just like every little ache and pain. You always wonder, well, is this the start of something else now, or am I just 42?
But I think that's really good perspective, to be able to remember, like, people going through cancer are probably, even if they're in remission, they're probably scared, and that's a real I can't wait to go through and take all my little notes down for this so I can send it in my summary email, and for those of you watching, whether it's live or as a replay, make sure you head to my, website. It's at the very top of the comment section, so that way you can get on the email list, so that way you can get this interview replay, get all the bullet points points that Matt, these awesome wisdom nuggets that he's sharing, as well as a special song. We'll get to that in a little bit later because I want Matt to talk about his song in a bit. But with all the good stuff, I have to ask kind of the follow-up question. What did people do, whether it was to you or not to your family, that just was not helpful? Could be, of course, with good intentions. I would assume actually probably all of it was good intentions. But what did people do or say that you're like, oh, just don't do that if you know somebody with cancer?
I was I was a little different than most people that go through this sort of thing. I documented my entire experience, and at the time I was still active on Facebook with a personal account, and I was an open book. I shared everything. I shared the good days, I shared the bad days. So there really wasn't anything that sticks out to me like, ugh, don't do that to somebody with cancer, because I wanted people to have uncomfortable conversations with
Mm,
me because it's an uncomfortable situation. And if you just tiptoe around it, then you've got speculation, and you've got, you know, you just deal with it. And that's kind of,
mm,
you got to just tackle things, and because they're not going to go away on their own. And if you don't tackle it, that's how rumors start and people start to think,
mm.
what's going on. Or the last thing I wanted was somebody to see me looking like I did, not say anything, and then run around and tell everybody that they thought I was going to die, because I wasn't going to. I mean, I probably could have, but that wasn't in my plan, I guess,
Yeah.
is what it comes down to. I guess the main thing is that people need to remember that, um, for me, it was my first time dealing with something like this. And everybody that was around me, it was their first time dealing with something like this too. So nobody really knew how to deal with it. So when tensions get high and you think somebody is doing something that's not right in a situation like this, they're probably just figuring this out too. They're all in the same boat. One person's the patient, everybody else is on the support team. There may be a spouse, there may be brothers and sisters, there may be, who knows who's all involved. But, everybody's got to figure out how to deal with it. And if you don't know what they're thinking, don't just assume that they're just being an a-hole, you know, or something. They're just trying to deal with it too. Everybody's in the same boat, fighting the same
Mm.
fight, just in a different part of the battle. That's all.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for that wisdom. I can't wait to just keep soaking everything you have to say in, because you are just sharing so many nuggets. So I really, really appreciate that. And you're like you said, it's better to say something and mess up, or to give the wrong meal, or to do something
Mhm.
wrong than to do nothing at all. And I think that's a really powerful takeaway, because we're also afraid of making a mistake, that
Mhm.
it often does shame us into silence. And I
Mhm.
love that term, shame us into silence, because that's what happens so often, is we're afraid to say something. So I love that you're kind of giving us permission to mess up.
Yeah.
It's okay. You can say the wrong
Well,
thing,
and,
say
and
something.
and think of it this way: there is nothing that you could say that is going to be worse than what they're going through right now. So let her buck. I mean, sometime when you and I get together again, I'll share some stories of some of the setbacks and the goofy things that happened, and some of the really really gross things that happened. But it's like nothing phases you anymore. So
Right.
don't hold back. I mean, and if it's something that is going to be an emotional situation, that's important too. You got to do that too. I had my moments where I just decided I was just going to cry for a bit, and that's okay.
Mm.
You're going to have good days and you're going to have bad days, and you just got to remember that when the bad things happen, maybe just go to bed early that day and then start up the next morning. It's probably going to be better.
I love that. I love that so much. And as we kind of wrap up our last minute here, you are an extremely talented musician. So again, everybody head to his page, follow his band. In the email that I am going to send out to all of you who are on my email list, so you got to head to MikiSpeer.com, get on that list, so that way you're going to be able to see this. We're going to send the MP3 of one of Matt's songs. So Matt, do you mind introducing the song a little bit so people are excited to get that email and know what it's about when they get it?
Yeah, not at all. So, one of my coping mechanisms was I brought my guitar with to the hospital every time I went, and I played it a lot the first couple trips. When I by the end, I just slept the whole time I was there, so I didn't bring it anymore. But this song that I'm sharing started while I was in the hospital, just something, some melody I came up with, and it wasn't until I got home and started the recovery process that I was able to start writing the lyrics for it. And the song is called Brothers and Sisters, and it's basically just was about resigning to the fact that you're going to need help with things, and letting people help you when they offer, knowing that it's okay to let them help you. You don't you know you It's fine to be stoic and to be a mountain, and to be the tree, but sometimes you have to resign to the fact that you're going to need a hand with some stuff, and there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that. So that's what the tune was about.
Well, thank you so much. I can't wait to share it with everybody. I listened. It's beautiful. The lyrics are awesome. So everybody, if you haven't yet, head to MikiSpeer.com. Make sure you're on that list so we can get that out to you. And follow Matt's page so that way when the album drops, you're going to be one of the first people to hear it. Matt, thank you so much for sharing your story, for your wisdom, for your spirit. We are just so blessed by you tonight.
Thanks, Mickey. I appreciate it.
And everybody, for those of you who are still hanging around, let me know what you think in the comment section. Do you know someone with cancer? Did any of this hit anything for you? Can you relate to any? Do you have any follow-up questions? I know for me, as Matt was talking, I had flashback after flashback after flashback with my mom's journey. Man, it's crazy how every story is different, but there's so many parallels. And then I love all the stuff that Matt had to say tonight about making sure we step up. And the biggest takeaway, I think, is finding the coordinator. And if there isn't a coordinator, figure out who that should be. If you are an acquaintance, if you don't know, I've got this theory called the target theory, which means if you're thinking of an archery target, there are people in your life who are more acquaintances. You kind of know them, and that constitutes a level of appropriateness. Then you get to your more inner ring, and these are like your friends, your family friends. And then you get to your middle, which is like a 911 person. Here's the great news about coordinating. You don't have to be an immediate person. In fact, sometimes these people are so swept up in the mess of it, they can't coordinate. So if you are good at that, please, please use your gifts of stepping up to the plate, because that is so unbelievably helpful. I know my family had a meal train when my mom was sick, and like Matt said, it's a game changer. So Matt, thank you for your wisdom. For all of us, whether you are experiencing cancer within your own family or yourself, or you're like pretty much everybody else where you know somebody with cancer, let's put on our thinking caps and think, who do I know with cancer? Because I can think of about 5 people off the top of my head right now. And what can I maybe do a little bit more effort for? Because it takes a village. And what a blessing to be part of someone's village. So thank you all. It's so great to see you. I'll see you next week. And if you haven't yet, make sure you head to my website, jump on my email list, because in the next week or two, I will have my song drop, and I am so excited for it. So I'll see you guys next week. Until then, have a great one. Thanks, everybody.